The fluorescent lights of the lecture hall hummed with the dull, insistent thrum of a dying star, casting a sickly yellow glow on the rows of eager, or at least feigning eager faces. Dr. Evans, a man whose enthusiasm for cognitive dissonance seemed inversely proportional to his awareness of how profoundly bored he was making us, droned on about the fascinating ways humans lie to themselves. "Fascinating," he said. I scribbled a tiny, intricate spiderweb in the margin of my notebook. More fascinating, in my humble, entirely unqualified opinion, were the myriad ways we don't even bother lying, preferring instead the cosy comfort of utter, unadulterated apathy. It required far less mental gymnastics, just sink into the soft, yielding mud of indifference. Ah, bliss! And this, Dr. Evans declared, tapping a slide that depicted two circles, aggressively attempting to overlap, demonstrates the uncomfortable tension experienced when holding conflicting beliefs. I stifled a yawn that felt less like tiredness and more like my soul trying to escape my body through my mouth. Conflicting beliefs? My only deeply held belief was that this hour would eventually end. Everything else was just noise, a relentless, high-pitched frequency that most people seemed to mistake for music. They danced to it, they sang along, they formed tribes around it. I just wished someone would turn the damn volume down, or, better yet, smash the stereo. The girl next to me, Sarah or Emily or something equally forgettable, nervously adjusted her glasses. She probably had conflicting beliefs about whether she'd finish that essay on time or if she should really ask Dr. Evans that incredibly insightful question she'd been formulating. Pests, these questions. They buzzed around the still air, tiny gnats disrupting the perfectly good stagnation. Dr. Evans' voice faded slightly as my thoughts drifted, a small leaky boat on a vast grey sea. Psychology, the study of the human mind, as if you could ever truly map that dark, labyrinthine cave. We were all just fumbling around in the dark, occasionally bumping into each other, mistaking the echo of our own fear for connection. Or maybe that was just me. Maybe everyone else had flashlights and compasses and a clear destination. I, on the other hand, was quite content to sit in the damp earth and watch the interesting shapes the shadows made. The clock on the wall, a stern, unblinking eye, finally acknowledged my silent pleas. 3:59 p.m., 1 minute until liberation. The air in the room shifted, a collective, almost palpable sigh of relief. Dr. Evans seemed oblivious, winding down his lecture with the forced cheer of a game show host who knew his contestant was about to win a consolation prize. "Any questions?" he asked, peering out over the sea of faces. Silence. Beautiful, glorious silence. A few notebooks snapped shut. A chair scraped against the floor. The symphony of departure began. I gathered my things slowly, letting the wave of humanity crash and recede before navigating the treacherous waters of the aisle. Outside, the campus buzzed with life. Students laughed, talked, walked in groups of 3 or more, the basic unit of the social organism. I was a single-celled entity in this vibrant petri dish, perfectly adapted to my solitary existence. No need for complex interactions, no need for the exhausting mitosis of friendship. Just me, my books, and the comforting anonymity of being just another face in the crowd. A ghost, perhaps, but a comfortable ghost. The walk back to the apartment was the usual uneventful pilgrimage. The same cracks in the pavement, the same indifferent trees, the same distant hum of traffic that served as the city's constant, low-grade anxiety attack. Our apartment building was nondescript, a concrete box among other concrete boxes, a monument to functional mediocrity. Just the way I liked it. Minimal surprises, maximum predictability. I unlocked the door, the familiar click echoing in the quiet hallway. The air inside the apartment was still, carrying the faint, conflicting sense of my austere existence and Jade's vibrant chaos. My side of the living room was neat, sparse, a single armchair, a stack of books, a floor lamp casting a pool of reserved light. Jade's side was a kaleidoscope of discarded clothes, textbooks splayed open like fallen birds, empty coffee cups like tiny, defeated soldiers. It was a visual representation of our personalities, my carefully constructed void versus her sprawling, effervescent everything. I dropped my bag by the door and headed towards my room, already anticipating the blessed silence, the closing of the door that would signify my retreat from the world. That's when I saw it. On the small, cluttered kitchen counter, nestled amongst a pile of Jade's mail and a half-empty box of cereal, was a single envelope. It was plain, white, unremarkable. My name wasn't on it. No stamp, no address, just sitting there, a silent, unassuming intruder in the domestic landscape. My initial reaction was one of mild irritation. Why couldn't she just leave things where they belonged? But then, a tiny, almost imperceptible prickle of something unfamiliar. Curiosity, unease, like finding a perfectly ordinary stone in your shoe. It wasn't dangerous, but it definitely didn't belong. I picked it up. It felt thin, like there wasn't much inside. No return address, just the plain white of the envelope. Slowly, I opened it. Inside was a single folded sheet of paper. Jade's handwriting, a flamboyant script with unnecessary loops and flourishes, covered the page. It wasn't a full page, more like a hastily torn-off corner. "Page," the note began, unnecessarily stating my name as if I wouldn't know who it was addressed to. "I'm going away for a while. Don't look for me. I just need to be somewhere else. Don't worry about me. See you around." That was it. No explanation, no destination, no time frame. Just a casual dismissal, a literary shrug. See you around, as if she was just popping out for milk. My first thought, after the initial jolt of surprise, was how utterly Jade this was. Impulsive, vague, leaving a trail of unanswered questions like breadcrumbs for someone else to follow. Except, in this case, the instruction was explicitly not to follow. I read the note again, and then a third time. The simplicity of it was unsettling. There was no panic in the handwriting, no tremor of fear. It was almost breezy, like she was off on a spontaneous road trip to a quirky roadside attraction. Just need to be somewhere else, a wonderfully cryptic reason, as if the universe had reserved a specific somewhere else just for Jade. I crumpled the note slightly in my hand, the cheap paper feeling flimsy, insubstantial. Don't look for her. A command from a roommate I barely spoke to, a roommate who was, until this moment, just a source of ambient noise and occasional clutter in my life. Now she was a mystery. I tossed the note back onto the counter next to the half-empty cereal box. My stomach felt a little tight, not from hunger, more like a knot tying itself slowly and deliberately. This wasn't supposed to happen. My life was supposed to be a flat line, a steady, predictable rhythm. No peaks, no valleys, certainly no sudden, unexplained disappearances. I went into my room, the sanctuary of my solitude. I closed the door, the familiar click, a small comfort. I tried to unpack my bag, tried to fall back into the routine, but the image of that note, the casual finality of it, kept surfacing. Don't look for me. It wasn't a plea, it was an instruction, an almost arrogant instruction. I ate a solitary dinner, the food tasting like ash. I attempted to read, but the words blurred on the page, replaced by Jade's looping script in my mind's eye. I tried to convince myself it was nothing. People went away, people left notes, roommates had lives outside of sharing a kitchen. This was normal, this was fine, but it didn't feel fine. It felt like a glitch in the matrix, a tear in the fabric of my carefully constructed normalcy. I went to bed, the silence in the apartment amplified, no longer comforting but vast and empty. I usually slept easily, a swift descent into oblivion. Tonight, sleep was a distant shore I couldn't reach. My mind replayed the image of the note over and over. Don't look for me. It was like a dare or a warning. The next morning was a slow, grey crawl. The note was still on the counter, a silent accusation, or maybe just a statement of fact. I avoided looking at it directly, navigating around it like a landmine. The coffee tasted bitter, the apartment felt different, like a key element was missing, and that absence had shifted the molecular structure of the space. Throughout the day, in lectures, in the library, the note lingered at the edges of my thoughts. It was an unwelcome guest, sitting uninvited in the corner of my mind, making uncomfortable observations. Why had she gone? Where? And why tell me not to look? It was illogical, like trying to teach a fish to ride a bicycle. The instructions were irrelevant to the subject. Why would I look for her? I didn't even know her, not really. This was the irony, wasn't it? The universe, with its infinite capacity for cruel jokes, had decided that the most solitary, unconnected person in the apartment building would be the one left holding the bag, the one entrusted with the secret of a vibrant social butterfly's sudden flight. It was darkly hilarious, in a way only the truly cynical could appreciate. It was like giving a blind man a detailed map of a city he'd never seen. Useless, pointless, and yet the map was still there. After my last class, the persistent unease had solidified into a dull ache behind my eyes. It wasn't worry, not in the conventional sense. It was more like a technical problem I couldn't solve, a bug in the system. Jade's disappearance was a disruption, and my brain, calibrated for routine and predictability, was struggling to process it. As I walked back to the apartment, the thought of the empty space where Jade should be felt heavier than usual. Not the physical space, but the energetic space, the absence of her music filtering through the walls, the lack of the familiar clatter of her getting ready, the missing scent of whatever exotic tea she was currently obsessed with. It was like the background hum of the apartment had been switched off. I opened the door, and the silence this time was deafening. It wasn't just quiet, it was a presence. The absence of sound felt heavy, suffocating. There was no sign of life, no lights on, no music, no movement from Jade's room. Okay, deep breath. This wasn't a mystery. People left notes, people went away. Maybe she was at Sasha's. Maybe she'd decided to visit her parents on a whim. Maybe she'd joined a travelling circus. The possibilities, however improbable, were endless, and none of them involved me. I went into the kitchen, the note still lying there, a pale ghost on the counter. I picked it up again, reading it one last time. Don't look for me. The words seemed bolder now, more insistent. I threw the note in the trash. That felt better. A small act of defiance against the unsettling ambiguity. Problem solved. No note, no mystery. Just Jade being Jade. I went to my room, intending to finally bury myself in my books and pretend the last 24 hours hadn't happened. I sat on my bed, and my hand, almost on its own, reached out. Underneath my pillow, tucked away as if hidden, was a phone. Not mine, Jade's. It was face down, the screen dark. Its mere presence under my pillow felt like a violation of my carefully guarded space, like a bomb ticking quietly in my sanctuary. Why would she leave her phone? People didn't just leave their phones. It was the modern-day equivalent of leaving your own heart behind. My hand hovered over it, a morbid fascination warring with a deep-seated instinct to recoil. This felt significant. Too significant. This wasn't just a casual trip. Leaving her phone was like leaving a trail of breadcrumbs made of highly explosive material. The silence in the apartment pressed in on me. The dark, empty space where Jade's presence used to be felt vast and cold, and in my hand I held a small, rectangular device that felt like a direct line into the heart of the darkness. "Don't look for me," the note had said. But the phone felt like it was begging to be found, and maybe, just maybe, I was morbidly curious enough to listen.